and conflict-affected states in Africa have taken center stage at this year's spring meetings hosted by the World Bank and the IMF here in Washington, D.C. Through the International Finance Corporation, a member of the World Bank Group, initiatives are underway to support private sector growth and to create a business environment that attracts investment into Africa. Hello and welcome to this special CNBC Africa broadcast. I'm Nozi Pombanjo.
Each spring, over 2,000 global participants from both the public and the private sector, media, academia and civil society gather in Washington, D.C. for the spring meetings of the World Bank Group and the International Monetary Fund. At the heart of this year's annual gathering are various committee meetings focused on the global economy and international development, which includes in-depth discussions on the state of financial markets. An important topic on this year's official meeting agenda was an in-depth discussion around doing business in fragile or conflict states.
There's about 30 fragile states around the world. Most of them are based in Africa, so about 60% of them are in Africa, but the rest of our countries are some in Asia, some in the Middle East, and also we have one in Latin America. So, as you know, FCS run a range of countries, from countries that have just emerged from war, from violence, to other countries that have even some significant investor appetite, such as Myanmar.
Right.
So you really have quite a variety of countries around the world that fall into this category. For us, I think the key is that we as an institution have a huge responsibility to make a difference in these countries.
These countries are called fragile and conflict-affected states because indeed the economic and everything there is the concept of fragility, and it is caused sometimes by cause of violence, or sometimes just cause of economic, or I could say sometimes you have some disease, let's say, for example, that affect the country and causes all this. But the bottom line of all of this is that the fragility is really what is the common cause and what you call the fragile and conflict-affected states.
Fragile states in Africa face a myriad of serious and acute challenges, including political instability, inadequate public services, as well as a lack of economic opportunities. Though a lot of the responsibility lies with the public sector in order to move countries from fragility to stability, the power of the private sector, especially from an investment perspective, cannot be ignored.
When you look at fragile states, very often, part of the reasons they have become so fragile is because they have weak institutions, for example. So one of the most important things that we need to do is to help recreate those institutions. We provide a lot of technical assistance to support the rebuilding of the institutions, to strengthen the institutions in those countries. So our first point of call is we put a lot of technical assistance, improving the investment climate and things like that. Of course, those countries, they need investment by the private sector because they need jobs.
Conflict-affected states have for a long time been receiving less development assistance than many other countries. And when a country is in conflict, that also affects how investors look at a country. So that means that you kind of more or less get a double whammy in delays, and you get a hindrance in rebuilding the economy. So really, from a development perspective, supporting private sector development in fragile states is a way of assisting a faster return to normality, to create those jobs that are needed to get back and to create hope for the everyday person, that here is really something positively happening and that the economy will be growing and we can confidently reinvest our own money also into the economy in that particular state.
Through various IFC initiatives, private sector players located within conflict states in Africa are receiving on-the-ground support in order to strengthen their role in the process towards stability.
So CASA is an initiative from the IFC focusing on fragile countries. My role in Burundi is to make sure that we deploy all our products, our technical assistance and our investment on the market. Our role is really to create an ecosystem that will allow the emergence of private sector.
IFC actually have a program with Business Age, which is the program to, I would say, a platform for entrepreneurs to discuss about their challenges, the idea, the resources. But the most thing for me to have the courses, it was an open book to talk about myself with other entrepreneurs. And then for the first time I felt less alone and understood. It was amazing because you feel like it is the courses what we had that time was like how to make a quick decision as an entrepreneur. You think like it's easy, but for me it gave me more confidence with my everyday decision.
Before IFC, I started the business in my kitchen, just myself, then out to my balcony. And then IFC were part of a program to find business entrepreneurs in Sierra Leone. Business Bomba it was called, and I was the first winner. And with that, I applied to IFC and I got a grant. So I was able to build a purpose-built factory. I was able to go buy equipment, employ more staff. I was able to develop my 30-acre farm. So without IFC, I couldn't have done any of this. So, and apart from that, it isn't just the financial support. I mean, they give technical support as well.
International companies in partnership with the IFC are also lending their support, including in states where Ebola has impeded investment growth.
You must realize when multinationals go to Africa to invest, we have to take a lot in charge. It's not only the operation itself, but we have to be responsible for housing, for road infrastructure, social infrastructure, administrative infrastructure, etc., etc. So we have our own schools, our own hospitals, dispensaries, and we live with the communities because it's rural operations. It's not close to the capital, it's rural. And in that context, we were extremely well placed to see what was happening. And we were fortunate, our coordinating medical staff recognized the problem of Ebola. In fact, long before the international community saw it. And as such, we started already in February, March, before it ever started, March last year, before the whole outbreak started, we took already measures. And we can take these measures because we have our own hospitals, we have the ways of communicating with the people through unions, education in school, radio programs, etc., etc.
With the support from both public and private sector parties, the conflict state landscape on the continent is changing, but a lot more remains to be done.
Certainly the continent as a whole is doing much better, and there's just great signs of optimism and hope in the continent, but certainly we do see kind of some of the stickiest poverty. The poverty that we haven't really been able to make a dent in is in some of the fragile states. I think we all have heard about what's happening in the Ebola countries, and I think part of the reason why we have these crises and these outbreaks is because we have weak institutions, and we have for example, a health sector that really doesn't function. So part of the issue around fragility is that it leaves you exposed to these kinds of epidemics and these kinds of crises. So for me, I think if we as an institution are serious about reducing poverty and hopefully ending extreme poverty, we really have to focus on these countries, on the fragile state.
Unfortunately, the number of countries coming out of fragility and conflict changes, doesn't necessarily decrease. So we have today a list of 17 countries that are categorized as fragile and conflict situations. And this list is updated on an annual basis by the World Bank Group. So some countries do graduate. That's what happened last year, for example, with Malawi and the Republic of Congo. It happened a couple of years back with Guinea. But I'm afraid that with the impact of the Ebola crisis and some conflicts in other parts of the region, we'll probably stay with the same number of countries for the next fiscal year.
While the next 12 months remain challenging, attendees at this year's spring meetings in Washington were cautiously optimistic that through proper public-private collaboration and support, the fragility to stability battle can be won.
Governance is a key element, a key dimension. The ability to put in place a business environment that is actually open to foreign investors and protects local businesses is a key dimension. At IFC, we do also strongly believe in the impact of having foreign direct investment and bringing large corporates into African markets, linking them with the local economy, with the local small businesses. I think this combination of good governance, of a regulatory framework that is open for business, and the ability to actually broaden the impact of bringing foreign direct investment by having all those small businesses accessing international value chains, being exposed to new standards, new practices, new sets of governance is a great opportunity.
Let's tackle the basics first. So we need, for example, we need power. We need electric power for SMEs and for companies to operate. We need to start building the basic foundation for a financial system that's going to provide loans to entrepreneurs. We also need access to markets. So we need things as simple as making sure we have a port, we have basic logistics to get products in and out of the country. And also starting to incentivize investors that are going to link local companies to the world. So it could be an agribusiness company, for example, in Malawi that we supported, called Malawi Mangoes. They're going to build a mango processing plant that's going to buy from over 4,000 local farmers. And they're actually going to be the link that these farmers are going to have to the global market. So right. This is the kind of thing that we can do, attracting those pioneering investors that can make those investments that actually link the country to the world. And it doesn't actually it doesn't have to be sort of these global solutions. It's one step at a time, one investment at a time, and one project at a time.
This year's spring meetings hosted by the World Bank and the IMF have reaffirmed that there is an investment case for fragile and conflict-affected states in Africa. With the right partnerships and the right support on the ground, these markets need not be left behind from Africa's growth story. I'm Nozipho Mbanjwa for CNBC Africa, reporting from Washington, D.C.